Hello, friends, and welcome to the Bear Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Cub, a health coach who has been working with men in the bear community and beyond to make small, sustainable changes to their lifestyle and diet. In this podcast, you're going to be learning about topics like body positivity, weight neutral health, self-love, self-acceptance, and more. So I'm excited for you to be here. A big, warm Cub Hub welcome, and let's get into it. On today's episode, I sit down with Nirmal Chandraratna. He is a good friend of mine. He's multi-talented, as you'll soon learn all about. He's a yoga teacher, cellist, a meditation instructor, and much more. Please note that we recorded this episode back in April of 2020, so it was peak quarantine. We were both kind of adjusting to that, and then obviously a lot has changed in the world since then. But this is the first episode I recorded, so it's essentially like the pilot, and there's no better person to sit down and chat with than Nirmal. He is so grounded. He is, like, to me, like a lozenge. Like his voice and his presence and everything is just very soothing and calming. So I think you're going to enjoy this one. At the time we recorded, he was our bear yoga instructor. So we do online virtual classes for my bear men's group. Since then, he's moved on to do other projects. He's very much involved in different communities. But it's likely we'll do other workshops and things in the future. So definitely stay connected. You can find us on Instagram at Bear Wellness Pod. And let me know, what topics you're excited about. Our class schedule is also up there in the link in bio. We do, bear yoga classes every week, fitness class, and a meditation class, and much more. So definitely reach out to us, stay connected, and in the meantime, I hope you enjoy this episode. With us this morning is Nirmal, who is our bear yoga instructor, meditation teacher. He has like a million things that he's good at and talented at that we want to get to know about this morning. Welcome, Nirmal. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, yeah. Do you have your coffee for our coffee talk?
Coffee, yes. I'm ready to go.
I have like a nitro brew oat milk can. It's like bizarre.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wait, it's from a can?
It's from a can. I've just been buying so many coffee products during this pandemic, like Chameleon and Bulletproof, and I don't know. It's like the only thing that can get me through this.
Nice.
But welcome to the podcast. We're super excited to have you. I feel like we know each other at some level, and you've been hosting our bear yoga classes for a while in person, which is pretty amazing. And then over the last 6 weeks, you've hosted, I want to say, 14 bear yoga classes virtually, which is amazing.
Wow.
So first of all, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
And before we get into like all the things that you're amazing at, and so I can like feel a little bit better about myself for not being multi-talented, what's like one or two things that you're really terrible at?
Oh my gosh. I'm terrible. Actually, I'm really undisciplined. Like wildly undisciplined, and like I have to actually make checklists of things to do in a day, like literally like just brush, floss, make the bed.
Nice.
I'm off races, like down rabbit holes of things that I'm interested in, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's really helpful for me to know. I love when people are like super smart, super talented, but then like, yeah, you have to have like a to-do list to like remind yourself to floss.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better about myself. But no, really, like, you obviously have so many talents and so much knowledge. So, obviously you're a yoga instructor, you are study meditation, or you're a meditation instructor. You're a cellist, like super talented cellist, and we'll share links to like some of the performances or videos you have so people can see you in action, but you played a cello in our classes, which is amazing. Would love to just know a little bit more about your background, like where you grew up, like what was the journey like getting to this place now where you are in that realm of like yoga and meditation? Did you ever have like a regular office job, or what was life like over the last few decades?
I was very, very mainstream, for a really, really long while, like where, I had a corporate job. Let's see, at some point, let's see, around 2002, I was working for a corporation. It was basically a pay-per-view network. And, I was in the promotions department making videos and things like that. And
Oh.
I didn't make the videos myself, but I got laid off with a bunch of other people, and kind of made me realize that you could be devoted to an organization, but then they could just cut loose, and so I was sort of disillusioned by that because I really enjoy my coworkers and
Mhm.
the just hanging out and like just being with good company. So
How long were you there for?
about 5 years, I believe, and I made a decision at that point to try and make a way of living in which I wouldn't be depending on other people. I'd be more like a freelancer, self-sufficient. And I found this great book, Zen and the Art of Making a Living, which is about uh, sort of bringing Eastern philosophy into the idea of a career.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's like a workbook. It's an amazing book if you're ever looking to
Oh, I'm like obsessed with all types of books like that, so I'm sure I'll I'll go down a rabbit hole. You said Zen and the Art of Making a Living.
started making a living. I think, oh, I didn't bring it here, but it's one of these books that I come back to continually, and it really is about inquiring about what the world needs and what your talents are, and trying to find that place between the two.
Fantastic. What did and so like what were your takeaways? What like how what did that lead into after reading that book and leaving that job?
Yeah, and the funny thing was that I ended up actually teaching test prep of all things for a long while, and
Okay.
that afforded me to really delve into music because I had a lot more flexibility with my schedule. But then around 2010, I had this really amazing kind of confluence of different new experiences that sort of brought me into a spiritual path. I guess within 1 year, I discovered uh, plant medicine. So just working with shamans, and
Mhm.
that was just life changing. I discovered kirtan, which is a form of yoga that involves music, right, and
Mhm.
chanting, and it just was incredibly beautiful. Discovered body electric, which is this practice of working with like sort of sacred sexuality, eros.
Mhm.
All these things kind of conspire to really make me want to understand, um, what the world was about more, especially kirtan. And I started to study Sanskrit, and I was coming into this as a fallen Catholic and an atheist, and I just kept reading more and more about it. And I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. Just enjoyed it. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and this is why I'm like I started the conversation with like what are you not good at? Because it's like that sounds like a lot of knowledge and like a lot like a really awesome journey, and you have such like a colorful past. And this is great because I know like parts of this. Like I
Uh,
knew you did like test prep because I'm like when we used to do yoga classes like at your apartment or other places you'd have like to you know tutor someone after. So I knew like that piece. I knew you played music in yoga classes, but yeah, super cool to hear about like how your trajectory changed. And I love stuff like that where it's like you're on like one certain path and then all of a sudden it's like you may read a new book and that moves you in a new direction, and then you like learn about something else and it keeps going. What, just out of curiosity, like how did you get into like learning about shamanism or like Did you go somewhere where you met a shaman? Like, I need to know a lot more about that.
Yeah, funny that it was really by word of mouth. I heard about these folks that were wandering around, and they were coming nearby, and I had never actually done anything used like plant medicine. I never did recreational drugs or anything like that, and it was just this, I guess, a chance encounter, chance conversation where I just ended up talking with somebody, and what it allowed me to do was to just kind of understand that what I see through my senses is not the only way of experiencing things. And I think a lot of people have a similar experience. They're like, "Oh, I thought that this is it," and
Right.
the way we process information, it just happens to be the way that our body is built. And like, so there's other ways of kind of experiencing the world. And it kind of went through a little breakdown. I was like, "What does this all mean?"
Right. It just like flips everything on its head.
It really did.
When you say plant medicine, is that like ayahuasca, like that type of thing, or
I don't even know.
I don't know. It's all very intriguing to me, that whole realm, but I've never really delved into it much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is, and we're not actually like out of respect, for the shamans. Really, we're not supposed to kind of like talk about the nature of it so much. But
We'll edit all that out. I'm just kidding.
well,
we'll just beep out things. So you're like,
I mean, all that to say is I think many different types of offerings these days, and it's just finding people that you trust. I mean, if possible, trying to find somebody that you know to kind of come with you into the experience. That's probably, I mean, if possible, it's a really helpful thing. Not that I don't know personally of anybody who's been in peril or anything like that. It's just kind of a place to sort of be more relaxed around it.
got it. Interesting. So that like changed the way that you viewed the world or how you like process information, which led to, you said, like a little bit of a breakdown one time. I would imagine just kind of like reassessing what's what.
That's right. Yes, and actually, that's when I started to realize I needed something to help, like, sort of process just my life and what's going on. And that's when I really took meditation on rather seriously. And I was struggling extremely hard with it. I really didn't get it. It was around 2011, 2012, where I would try it, but it was so boring.
Right.
I couldn't get it. And it's funny because I kept reading and reading about it. And then like one day I actually heard a podcast where I heard Amanda Palmer, of all people, talking about meditation. And she is this musician, like amazing musician, amazing personality. And she helped correct an assumption I had about meditation, which was I always thought that meditation was the practice of trying to clear one's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was failing at it, fantastically, like every single time. And what I learned was that meditation can be actually about exercising the muscle of focus, so that the mind generates thoughts constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's its job to do that. So, if you're trying to clear your mind, it's probably going to be a losing proposition. But if you practice focusing on one object, such as the breath or a mantra or a candle flame, and then every time your mind wanders, you just, lovingly bring it back to the object of focus, your brain actually changes in shape. It's almost like going to the gym, even though it's not a muscle.
Right.
Tissues actually thicken in certain places and atrophy in other places, especially, not to get on too much of the side, like the amygdala that's associated with stress and anxiety actually gets smaller when you meditate, right? And so that completely changed the game, and I was able to meditate on a regular basis ever since.
Yeah, I love that. No, I think it's super helpful, and it's good. I also think it's good to hear from people who are where you're at now, who are like, obviously, you know a lot about meditation, you're a yoga instructor, to know that like when you start off trying to meditate, it's like maddening. It's like the most annoying thing. And like you could fail at it and it's extremely difficult. But it's cool that your perspective shifted around like the purpose of it. Cause I think that's really like the unlock for people. Where if you like sit down and you're like, okay, I'm just, cause a lot of people sit down for the first time, or they're just trying it out for like, a few weeks, and it's like, don't think. And then you think, and you're like, okay, I'm terrible at this. And then it's just like boring and difficult. But if you know that, yeah, like it's really not, it's more about building that muscle of like being able to focus or come back to your breath or like whatever you're looking at. That's like doing repetitions at a gym, as opposed to just showing up at the gym and being like, pick up this massive weight. And then you're like, well, I can't do it. This is terrible.
Yeah, and over time, it actually comes to be quite enjoyable because it's a really nice way of taking a break from your day. Just kind of like being still, cultivating peace. And so I've come to make it, regular part of my life that I actually look forward to. And the thing about the other piece of meditation actually is Pema Chodron, like a Buddhist nun, amazing writer, like, just tons of amazing books. But she once said, like, I've meditated for decades and decades, and I still have a monkey mind that's constantly like, bringing up all these like unwelcome thoughts and emotions when I'm meditating. And I was like, oh, it felt so good.
Right.
Oh, so this is natural, and like somebody who's a supposed expert, I really think she's an expert, she's just, grappling with what already is there. And
Oh, I love that. No, it's so good to hear. And it's a reminder, like, we're human, and like, this is a natural mechanism to like create thoughts and to be alert, and you know what I mean? And that to go against that takes time and practice. Dumb little story, but we have meditation at our office now that we're all remote, and we have our yoga instructor who's amazing. She does yoga for us, but then we do like a meditation midday. And there was one time like last week where, and you could see everyone in the gallery of the Zoom, like everyone's meditating. And I was sitting there, my upstairs neighbor has a toddler, and he just kept like bouncing a ball. So at one point I just like went off video and just like started like in the middle of meditation, just started smashing the ceiling. And then came back and was like, okay, this is not working. So it's like, it's also like, and other times I'm fine at it. It's just like, sometimes it's impossible to get there. I don't know the purpose of that story, but I just need to get that off my chest.
Well, it's an interesting practice. Like, I love that you mentioned that. There's a sort of the idea, of course, meditation can have many, many different goals, right? But surely it'd be really nice to cultivate peace when we're meditating. But, another goal of meditation is to be present, right? To be present to the present to what's happening in the moment. And that whatever comes your way is what's happening, and really coming to a deep awareness of it, and maybe acceptance of it. But yeah, maybe that would be the correct word. But that, so if the toddler's bouncing the ball, the toddler's bouncing the ball in the middle.
Right.
And it's also, I think, perfectly natural to want to bang the
Oh
ceiling.
yeah. And the best part was that I used my yoga mat. So I had like a yoga mat, and I was just like swearing, and I thought it was funny. And I guess point being is I'm at a place where I've done meditation for years, not always consistently, but I know enough about it to know like, okay, that's fine. We're in extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
I just couldn't show up that day, but it's like, okay, we'll show up tomorrow, and then the next day, and like keep practicing.
Well, and also, I mean, that it's inevitable that these things are going to happen anyway, right? So, and then just understanding that the quicker we can accept that it's happening, and it's just completely a part of our world, the easier it is to kind of navigate past it, to just move on from it, not attach, I guess. And there's really a wonderful story of the Buddha, who, when he was doing his sort of final like sitting under this Bodhi tree, working his way towards enlightenment. All the demons and monsters kind of saw him doing this, and they like spent one night just completely just going at him with everything that they could possibly throw at him, just terrifying monsters and, just very seductive figures, and that all of this is part of the world. And like, it's almost like he sort of passed a test of sorts that, it was all there and it's all good, but he didn't need to react to it. And it's kind of a nice little.
So I'm like, okay, got it. I failed the test. I understand what you're saying. No, just kidding. No, but I know what you mean. It's like, yeah, like it's the times where you're really tested. It's like, and that's why you just keep practicing for those times where you are pushed, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, and also doing, personally, my experience of meditation it's like kind of taking an anti-anxiety pill, I would imagine, in the sense that I used to be very, very moody. And, I'm still like, crazy in all sorts of ways. But for whatever reason, meditating on a near daily basis has allowed me to just have this beautiful sense of evenness, to my day. So I'm a lot less emotionally reactive, and I just don't have these funks I used to get into. I'm really, really grateful for that, and that's a major reason of why I continue to do that.
No, that's amazing. Well, first of all, congratulations, and I like that you're self-reflective enough to be like, there's still a lot of things, and like even for me, it's like I still have general anxiety and panic disorder, and kind of get a little bit moody. But given all the inner work I've done and like the meditation and yoga and a number of other things, it's like it's just not like a default setting to be like to let my mood like go too extreme or to be like too reactionary, I guess, and like to have like that little bit of space sometimes where you're not always like, yeah, I'll smash the ceiling that time, but like having a little bit of space to be like, okay, how do I want to react and how's this going to serve me? And I think like for me in New York City, like the litmus test is always the subway. It's like if I'm overreacting to everyone, it's like, okay, I need to calm down and like maybe meditate in the morning, and center myself. And if I'm able to like be like, okay, well, how do I want to react and how is this going to serve me or help me? That's always like the test for me. And I think New York City in general is the test for everyone, I think.
Well, you said this word that really is useful, like just creating space, right, between like the stimulus and like the response, right? And I think there's this, I use the word fusion, that like if we allow ourselves to completely attach to things, you say I am angry, right? And like you are anger itself, right? And meditation allows you to kind of create some space, going, oh look, I'm actually having a lot of feelings of anger. That's interesting, and there's like I don't know what you call the witness or observer that's like able to like allow it to pass by, or like let it have its space, let it have its anger, and then let it dissipate. And the more we feed the anger, right, the harder it is to let it go. So
Right. Oh, I love that. So, okay, to move, because I want to move on to yoga as well, just so we have a little bit of time there. But what's like one or two pieces of advice for somebody who's like starting meditation for the first time, or is, maybe been doing it a little bit, but it's like, well, I don't really know if I can keep doing this, or, it's not really working. Like that point where you're like just kind of starting out.
yeah, I would say a couple of things. One is it's useful to well, gosh, that's an interesting question. I guess if I were speaking with somebody who said I really wanted to start meditation practice, the game I would have them play is for them to start, first of all, really, really small. Like do something small enough that you can commit to doing every day, even if it's just for 1 minute or 2 minutes at a time. Because it's the daily practice that's really the most important thing to cultivate.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're meditating, to sit still with the eyes closed and focus on the sensation of the breath going in and out of the body. And even more specifically, I can focus on the sensation of the air going in and out of the nostrils, like just something to focus on. That's the easiest thing. It could be really anything. But,
Mhm.
and to play a game, like I actually started playing a game where I say every time I would find my mind wandering away, I would just think the word thought, like if I would just kind of zap it, right? Like thought, and it would just happen over and over again. And then just come back to the breath. And after a while, I would actually just start to evolve that to I return to the breath anytime it comes
Mm.
away. So I think those are the two things. Just the regularity is super, super important. And then just understanding that anytime you're thinking it's not a bad thing, we're just trying to practice focus. And so come back to whatever you're focusing on. Come back, come back, come back. And that's the practice of meditation. It's not necessarily just being in this Buddha-like state in ecstasy in the perfect stillness of the universe, right? It's just the practicing of training your dog to sit, right?
Right.
Repetitively.
Oh, okay, that's super helpful. So one is like, yeah, I'm all about like starting really small.
Mm.
Don't set yourself up for failure of like, I'm going to do 30 minutes every day to start. It's like, yeah, do 1 or 2 minutes. And then, right. And then, yeah, being able to like, okay, I'm just going to sit here for 2 minutes and focus on like the air or the breath coming in and out of my nostrils.
That's
And
right.
then I also like the idea of gamifying it where you're like, because that, especially when you're starting, it's like that could be a fun way to do it where you're like, okay, cool. I'm just going to like, the game will just be to like call out when I'm thinking, and not in a punitive way though. And which I like that you brought that up as well. Cause I think a lot of people, as I see as a coach, it's like anytime people try to do something good for themselves, they beat themselves up. And it's like, yeah, why would it be fun to sit down for 2 minutes and just be like, I'm doing this wrong and be mad at yourself? So instead of making it fun, I'm just like, every time you think, just say, thought, and it's going to happen and that's fine. And the practice is like coming back to focus, and that's it. And it's like a muscle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's apps out there with tons of things. And if you feel like you really need something else, it's totally fine to start out with a guided meditation. Like there's an app called Insight Timer, has tons of free guided meditations on many things. It's a different has a different goal. I think it's not necessarily cultivating the sense of focus like just doing silent meditation, but
Mm-hmm.
anything just to help raise your state or change your state to something easier is completely welcome. So whatever you need to do to start.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, awesome. So I wanted to just move on, briefly to yoga,
Yeah.
because you've been teaching the Bear Yoga Basics class for us. You've also done Yin Yoga classes. Um, and I think this is where it would be really beneficial for our community to kind of hear about your journey.
Yeah.
So would love to, just hear a little bit about one, like, why did you want to do teacher training?
Mhm.
And maybe even backing up the track before that, like, what was it like just getting into yoga in general? So like, what was that period? And then like, what prompted like the next level?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny that there in the early part of my like adult life, in high school, I used to run cross country, and I like just loved running. And then when I was about, what was it, 27, 28 years old, I injured my feet and I just couldn't run anymore. And it was really, really hard because I would run to work, run home, just stuff like.
Wow.
And so that was really tough for me because it was this thing that just came really natural to me. And then there was not any other aerobic practice that I started taking up. And I gained like a lot of weight after that over the years, and started to just come to a place of like just being more comfortable being on a couch more than anything. And it's so easy to do that. It's so easy to be still. But and of course that is really the last thing you want your body to do. It's really important, especially as we age, to move and all this kind of stuff. And somebody told me something the other day that was so useful, like you can sort of divide your the parts of your life into things that involve your head, involve your heart, and involve your body.
Mm.
And you could kind of take a inventory and see, what's the most important and what's the least important, the priority of those three things. And personally, it had been the body for me. And I'd been doing yoga on and off for years and years. And I was always the other in the class in so many ways, just being a guy, being a person of color, being like a guy that's, like heavier than the other people in the class, and now older than the other people in the class. So it was just like never fun to go to your average yoga studio.
Sure. I'm just curious because I feel like that may be a lot of people's experience, especially because our community is all people who identify as male. A lot of us, have bigger bodies, and we're a diverse group. So just curious, like, was that something like throughout class that was like in your mind? Like, how did you kind of push through that uncomfortable feeling to one, like, get in the door and then like go through the class? And did that improve at all with time?
Yeah, I guess, it's funny. I think I started to sort of reclaim my otherness in a way,
Love that.
right? Because, you can't help but not be other in yoga studios as they are right now. And that, look, I'm just going to be here and just be this other person that's not like everybody else. And I mean, it's still always a little, a tinge of a struggle walking into a room. Everybody wants to walk into a room and see at least some uh, corroboration of your own identity. It's often, it just makes you feel like a little bit better and more comfortable.
Oh, for sure. No, I totally agree. And I think, yeah, anytime you feel like you're sticking out, it's like you're kind of vulnerable.
Yeah.
I'm short, so that happens to me if I'm around tall people or, or if I'm in a yoga class. Being a man and being a little bit heavier, it's like, it's hard not to get in your head about it. I do want to yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that. And again, I think these are like really good conversations to have. And I think we could have more of them. As you're talking, I'm going like, I had this thought over the last few years because I may mispronounce his name, but Yoganandra, is that the gentleman who came from India and brought like mindfulness and meditation to the West?
I think Yogananda.
Yogananda. Okay, I was close, but yeah, I had this thought recently because I went to his garden in his meditation center in California when I was there recently in
Cool.
Encinitas, I want to say. Um, and just the idea that like he was, you look more like him than anyone who'd be in a yoga class. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that he was a bigger guy.
Was he really? I didn't
Oh
know.
yeah, oh yeah. Look at photos of him. Like, and I did an Instagram post recently on it. And I don't know if I nailed the messaging right, but it was like, I mean, because I'm a little insecure about it. I got my mitts, my man boobs, and like a little bit of a gut, and like he had them too, and he was definitely a bigger guy. So just the idea, the irony, like that guy brought yoga essentially to. I mean, he wasn't the first, but he was one of the first, and he brought it to the West Coast
Hmm.
and made it popular in like LA and that area and then across the country. And if he showed up in the yoga class now in New York City, he'd be like, he wasn't like the most best looking guy. He was overweight and he had like weird straggly hair. And it's like, I don't know. There's something to that it just like, um, I don't know, the irony and like and also the sadness of like the fact that it's changed, that people who do look like him or people who are bigger would be insecure going into a yoga class now.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, it's kind of one of these things where I'm not sure there's nothing really to be done. It's just kind of what has evolved, over time. And uh, gosh, that's a really interesting point. By the way, there's a great documentary about him on Netflix. So he's the guy who wrote that book, Autobiography of
For
a Yogi.
yogi. Mhm.
I've never read it, but people love that book.
Yeah, I started it and I need to go back and finish it. It's like there's specific books that like you have to, like the timing has to be right.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like where you are in life. And yeah, there's something more there that I want to explore further. But you're right. There's nothing that necessarily can be done. It's more of like the message I think needs to get across to people that like, you can do yoga. You're meant to do yoga. It's for everybody. And the guy who brought it here looked like you, basically.
you need like a cartoon version, like a yogi version of Ratatouille. You know how the message of Ratatouille, the cartoon is like everybody can cook, anyone can cook. Did you ever see the movie?
I like know it, but I don't think I ever saw it. But I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Like even a rat can cook. So
Right.
we need that for you so badly. And the one of the hardest things. So the reason I went into the yoga teacher training, it's funny. I actually a couple years ago created my own self-hypnosis tape where I created all these affirmations of these things I wanted to bring into my life, and I would listen to it for 2 weeks before I went to bed. And I woke up one day after a couple weeks and I said, I'm going to be a yoga instructor. I literally just kind of came in, and I don't know where it came from, but I knew it was the thing that I needed to do. And as it happened, there were some open houses for this studio, Integral Yoga, and I ended up taking training through them. And as I came to consciousness about I was doing it and why I was doing it was the fact that I would really like to be an instructor that embodies the other, so that people can just feel welcome to just be in my class at least. And the other part of that was also learning. The one thing I learned, I went into the training thinking, oh, by the end of the training, I want to be able to touch my toes in this pose, and I want to lose 20 pounds and all this stuff. And the training really so beautifully helped me understand to just meet your body where it is.
Mm.
That somebody said something so wonderful, that any lineage of yoga is taught from the proportions of the body of the originator of that lineage. So if this guy who created this lineage of yoga is really, really flexible, and he's like 5'2", and like he has, arms that are, 8 feet long, like he's going to be able to do all these poses much more easily than a lot of other people, right?
Yeah.
So that the pose is not like, there is a platonic ideal, I suppose, of a pose, but really just getting into the shape of the pose in the proper way is going to give you the benefits. And it's okay if you don't touch your toes, and it's okay if you're like not even close to what it looks like in the textbook, so that was super huge.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you like went into it with like specific goals in mind. I feel like that happens in every area of life, when you go into something thinking what's going to happen and what you want, and then it just kind of like flips it on its head.
Yeah, and the crazy thing was like what ended up happening was I came into I hated it at the very beginning, because we had to do yoga 3 to 5 times a week, and it's a part of a requirement. We had to actually take a class that many times, and after the first week, I was so tired. I just didn't even want to do yoga anymore, and I just kept going. And there was a slow transition to just like my body really looking forward to the classes, and really just wanting to just feel stretched out and to feel like more aligned and at peace. And that is the thing, again, just coming back to a consistency of practice, that
Mhm.
anything you do consistently, you can start to cultivate into something you enjoy. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. And yeah, I think, I'm just trying to think of my own times of doing yoga and maybe like what other guys experience, where like it's a unique time where you're like, you're told like it's, no judgment, do what you can, but then like you kind of are judging yourself, or you're kind of looking around the room of what other people can do. and you're putting yourself in these positions that are like a little bit, abnormal, and you may not fully understand the instruction, and then it may get really frustrating and it doesn't feel very comfortable. So, I think maybe it's important to kind of be able to I guess the question would be like, what, if anything, can people do to kind of get through that period? I think consistency is important, because I think once you understand the poses, you know what's coming. You're like, okay, I know what this is, and I know how to kind of slowly improve. But maybe that period in the beginning where you're just like your first few weeks where you're like, this is just, I can't do this. It's too much.
Yeah, I think the biggest flaw of being a human being is wanting to do things too fast. Before we were able to like really get to it. And so yesterday in class, I was teaching like just sort of preparatory exercise for a crow pose, which is a pose I've always really enjoyed, like just seeing, not doing, because every time I try it, I end up crumpled on the floor, and hurting my nose and all this kind of stuff.
Right. But you just you like seeing someone with like their butt in the air.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, crow's pose. Just to make what it is like you're kind of like propped up on the palms of your hands on the floor, and you kind of balance your body, so that you're kind of sort of just balancing just on the palms of your hand, right? And you're sort of in a sort of a, what do you call
like a little turtle.
Turtle, yeah.
Right? Like,
it should be called balancing turtle, actually.
Yeah.
And but the funny thing is, so like learning, part of teacher training is understanding how to sequence things. And I learned to be super patient, and that, like I said before, just getting into the shape of the pose will give you the benefit of the pose. So I just started to not even, still be on my feet, but still start to like put some weight on my elbows. And you could still feel like your body is balancing. You're actually practicing balance. You're also cultivating the muscles of the body. And then after a day or two, actually probably after a week, I would start to just start to flex the toes and maybe get a little bit of air, just kind of jump up and down, and just do it a couple times and be done, but do it every day, and then finally you're able to your body just gets it and just kind of goes into the pose, and it's so nice. And I just remember just trying to do so many things way too fast, and especially, everyone wants to touch their toes, and I was like pulling on my toes and, and like,
right. You're like, I'm gonna get them.
Yeah. It's the last thing you want to do. You want to
right.
Acclimate, peacefully into the pose.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think it's like, and maybe it even goes back to like the meditation conversation we had earlier. It's like, it's all a really slow practice, and you're slowly building this muscle, or, what I mean? Like, we are in a culture where we want things really fast, and we want to be good at things really fast. And like, all of these things are essentially like skills or things that you're working on that take a long time.
Yeah, well, I actually just saw this amazing. Oh, I love this. It was they have these TED cartoons, like, the TED Talks,
Mm-hmm.
and they explained something that was super helpful, that when you're trying to create a new skill, when you do something repeatedly, the myelin, the coating around the nerves of that pathway, starts to thicken. So it actually creates like a highway, like, a nice like circuit. So your body, when you actually do something repeatedly, starts to learn by thickening the coating around the nerves. And for whatever reason, that I was like, it made me so patient to like, oh, so I'm just trying to thicken the coating around the nerves of like,
yeah.
and as opposed to like, why can't you do it? Why can't, it's like as if it's my fault, right?
Right. Then there's something wrong with you, and you can easily go back into like narratives of just like, well, yeah, I can't do that pose, and I also am bad at that, and you can like spiral in the negative. Absolutely. Which I think why all these things combined help. And it's like, whether it's you're doing meditation and yoga, or you're like just working on another skill slowly, or you're going for meditative walks, or like all these things combined, I think help. Yeah, and it's also like what do they say? Like neurons that wire together, fire together, wire together. So even like, I think you'd like this. We've been doing
um, we've been suggesting to the group to do the tree pose, which I love now because I just think it's like outside of like yoga where you're like on the mat and stuff. It's like it's just like a standing pose and you can do it anywhere, and that's why I think I like it. I've been doing it in the morning when I brush my teeth, when I look in the mirror. But lately, I just do it and I smile, just to also like reinforce that where it's like this is a good feeling while I'm doing this.
Nice.
And I do laughter yoga too. So actually today I started doing laughter while I was like in the tree. And I just thought it was I just like the whole thing I thought was so funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think, that these are all like cool ways to just kind of look at this, just like what you're doing, even neurologically, when you have consistency.
Well, one thing that I think is so hard to overcome is, just sort of the habit of lethargy, right? That of just being static and still. And I totally get it. And it's really hard to find a new way to kind of like get out of, what to be true, like what you think to be true, at least, right? But I guess it's finding the right analogy for yourself, I guess, or the right image or the right statement, of how things work. And I remember at some point in training, somebody said something that I was floored by, that every day that you're still, imagine like a little piece of tissue paper being added to the shape of your body to help corroborate whatever. So if you're lounging the couch with, you're like, your spine is like, curved in a way that's not healthy, and you're sitting there,
Like
a little piece of tissue, like fascia, basically, that's actually helping form the shape of your body. And so one of the goals of yoga is to actually move your body in all these different directions so that you can really continue to just have a nice, flexible body as we like age, and that's, I don't know, that really motivated me to want to do it. It's like, what is it going to take,
Oh yeah, no, I love that, and I think you're right. It's like finding whatever works for you, and there's so many different analogies or ways to look at it. But yeah, that's really interesting to be like. Again, I think like maybe it's some psychological thing that I don't fully understand, but I think it's like we have a really hard time, I think, thinking about like long term as humans, and I think and like progression.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, think like even the idea of just like, okay, I'm gonna lie on my couch and eat my Sour Patch Kids and watch Netflix, which I've been doing like all the time now. It's like that's not gonna like immediately destroy me, but it's like it's just slowly over time is gonna move me in one direction.
Yeah.
As opposed to like yoga too, it's like I could do one class, that's not gonna solve my problems, but it'll just like maybe take off one of those tissue papers or shape it a little bit differently. So it's like it's all very long-term ways to view things, and I think that's why I think all this is it's really difficult. But one thing that I find to be helpful, and we'll wrap up soon because I want to be respectful of your time, but is finding little ways to trick yourself. So like I do like this thing the 5-second rule, where you just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you just like launch yourself like a rocket. Whether it's like getting out of bed or just being like, I really should get up and like do plank, or I should, do something. And it's so easy to just sit there. But if you just, try it, you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then you just do it. It doesn't work every time, but it's like all these little things, bless you. You kind of find what tools work best for you. But I think like overall, what you're saying is, try to build some consistency, start small. I love what you said about like embracing the other. So if you're like, well, I'm a bigger bodied person, or I've never been athletic, and maybe a little awkward in the class, it's like, well, embrace that. It's not easy. Even someone like yourself, who is a yoga instructor now and knows all of this knowledge and has done so much, still probably has similar feelings than a lot of people who are just starting a new class. It's just that you've gotten comfortable feeling uncomfortable and embracing it, and kind of you've learned enough of different ways to see different perspectives of all of this.
Yeah, first of all, I want to also just say, like, what you were saying about tree pose, that like, just you're just doing it while you're brushing your teeth or what have you, is like really such a wonderful way of like creating like the lifestyle, right? Is just like in the little moments in between. I'm beginning to see that more and more. Like my brother is a coach at UCLA, and he anytime that he's like in a break, he just does a couple of burpees or push-ups or whatever, just out of habit. Like he just like that's his way of like continuing to be an athlete. Or musicians, every time like they're not doing something, they're just fiddling with a little piece of something they're working on. And so it's like during those breaks or those times where you're kind of doing like in between, like it's just putting something in there that's like something uplifting and so useful.
I love that. And I think like, I guess what I grapple with, and maybe, well, I don't necessarily personally grapple with it anymore, but I do a little bit, I guess. And I'm sure a lot of people in our group do too, is finding like an authentic way to do that. Because you're saying it's like a lifestyle, and then I can be like, well, when I think of lifestyle yoga, it's the woman in the class who is skinny and eats hummus and all that. Or even like the burpees, it's like, well, that's like a fitness guy and that's not me. So it's trying to figure out ways to show us and show our community that like there are authentic ways that you can do this. You don't have to all of a sudden change exactly who you are, but maybe like while you're watching Netflix or you're doing something, like do like the wrist thing that you've taught us, Nirmal, or do a yoga class and enjoy it, but doesn't mean that that's going to change, who you are or mean anything other than like, this is, a practice that's available to you. Does that make sense? And like, is there any thoughts you have about that, of like that hang up of just kind of like, cause I even feel it too. And I'm a health coach, but I'm kind of resisting the wellness industry now. I'm getting really annoyed by it just because of the messaging we get. So I think maybe just more of these conversations and the more examples we show people who do have bigger bodies who are other, that this is for you too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's for everybody. I mean, because it's just about like just maintaining, a healthy body, and we all need that. So I think there's two things. One, and I still don't understand what they mean by this. So this is something that you might have seen is like, oh yeah, just, like change your identity. Like, identify as a yogi or identify as an athlete or, or this new thing. And then, like once you think you are that person, then it'll be easier for you to do it. I've seen this a lot, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, it's,
I'm a genius. I'll just keep telling myself that.
I mean, I get the idea of it, right? The more you do something of a certain identity, you can start to like, but it takes a long time in my mind to do that.
Yeah. And I guess also it's like a lot of people listening to this or people in the group are like, well, I don't want that. I don't want to be any of those things, like, so I guess that's the thing where it's like, everything has to be so extreme these days where it's like, no, you can be you, have fun, eat your fried chicken on the beach with a bunch of bears, or go dancing or do whatever it is that you like doing, but you can also incorporate this into your lifestyle. Or you can just, I'm all about finding authentic ways to like enjoy yourself and have like a little bit of a healthier spin on it. So it's not like healthy, because that's just, to me, it's like a terrible word. But it's like, even if you go dancing, it's like, well, dancing can be really healthy. You know what I mean? Like dancing for a few hours is like intense. Or it's just like you have your lifestyle, but you're going to build in the consistency of like, okay, I mean, I'm going to do yoga a few times a week, or like with a group of bears or on my own. Or I'm going to like find a way to meditate or do something else that helps me just like be more of myself, even, where it's like the more of like the anxiety I take away from me, and the more I'm just grounded, it's like, okay, cool, I could actually do the things that I really want to do. And I think that's where you have to kind of see the benefit of all of this, where it's like, for you, even you earlier, you're like, well, I used to be kind of moody and I used to have all these issues. It's like, once you can start seeing like, oh, okay, cool, like life could be pretty cool. And part of it is because I'm doing this, small meditation thing, or I found something else that works for me. That I think helps reinforce it all too.
Yeah, I think that there, a major key is finding the thing that, finding the one little tiny thing that you might enjoy doing. Like, so when it comes to yoga, like what is the one one pose that you always thought was really cool or feels really good when you do it. Like, one example might be butterfly pose, right? Where you like are sitting with your soles of your feet together, and it creates a nice feeling of a stretching in the inside of the thighs, right? And it's like an easy one to do. It's like, if you find joy in feeling that nice little stretch, something you just start to do on a regular basis. And, a lot of people, like, there is sort of an idea of a sequence of what a yoga class should be, but you could just start with the poses that you love, right? And like, oh, I'd love to do this other thing, and just do, that one pose or those two poses that make you feel good. Finding the joy in, like, the thing that makes you feel good. Yeah, meditation is a harder sell because it's so subtle, like the benefits. And it's almost, you don't necessarily have to end up with meditation practice like, yeah, that was awesome. And like,
right.
but you could, like you said before, gamify it. Like, what is the game of something that you could do? Going like, wow, I sat down and I said the word thought because I saw thought, 10 times. That's awesome. That's great. Like,
THOT, right?
TH.
No,
Thought. But yeah, I mean, I think if there's some way, I mean, it takes some imagination sometimes, especially with the more disciplined the practice, but what is the tiniest enjoyable thing you can do so that you can just keep doing it, on a regular basis. And I feel like it's a lot of should, right? They're like, oh, I should be doing.
Right. Don't should yourself. Don't should your pants. That's like the phrase that I like to use. Sorry, I interrupted you with a dumb joke.
No, I mean, just the idea that it's totally fine, especially when you're starting out, just to find the joy in one thing or another. And I definitely have my favorite poses that, like, so for example, sun salutation. I know how good it is for me, and it's not my favorite thing to do. So, if I just have a quick yoga practice, I have my sequence of poses of things that, like, I really just like because they just stretch me out in a certain way, and I just feel a lot better. Especially if you have a, back pain, like what's the pose that gets you out of the back pain, or the pose that gets you out of the shoulder pain, and that kind of stuff. I'm beginning to see more and more how valuable that is to find the joy, right? Find the little piece of happiness. And then you could start to build a discipline if you want to go further by, like, starting to kind of, I mean, I think it's just more doing the tiny thing. I think that does change your identity, right? Then you are somebody that is doing a yoga pose, right? You're not a yogi necessarily in your head, but you're actually doing some form of yoga. And yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I just love how, it's all slow changes, but then you can also find the immediate joy in something. Not feel like, take the word should away. Like, I should be doing yoga, or I should do this, or, should eat X, Y, and Z. It's like, find what actually you enjoy. That's simple and small, and, build some consistency around it, and just see where it goes. It's like, the start of your journey. It's like you read that one book. You didn't really know exactly where this is going to take you. So it can be fun just to be like, all right, well, what would happen if I do go to a yoga class? Like, it's not really who I am or what I do, but what would happen if I went, just to explore that, or I explored meditation or did something. But listen, this is awesome. I feel like we have to talk like a bunch more to dissect like a lot of this, but do you have any like final words of wisdom or any like advice, again, for somebody I think who's just like starting out with even, meditation or yoga or anything that's just kind of like helping move them in a direction that they want to move, or that they may feel a little bit better in moving in?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question I constantly ask myself is, when you let me backtrack. The thing that sorry, I'm distracted by the noises.
Hey, we had a long streak where everything was awesome. So
okay, so I mean, so I ask myself a question constantly because I'm so easily passive. Do I want to consume or do I want to create? Right. And like, so that really helps me understand, like, the nature of my actions. And so one of the major priorities that I have in my day is I need to move in any way possible, like once in my day. And I actually just make a really small, like 7 minutes. I'm going to go running for 7 minutes. I'm going to do a 7-minute workout, yoga for 7 minutes. But just this one little piece that I'm just moving, because it's going to be good in the long run. It makes me feel better, even if I'm not enjoying it in that particular moment. But I'm trying to create more than I consume. I'm trying to just balance it. So yeah, it's totally fine to watch Netflix, but just watch less Netflix than what you're actually doing to make a better life.
Right. And know that you're like competing against that like really flashy thing. So it's harder to do the other thing.
Yeah.
And you may start off small, but I like the idea of just like, or even just asking yourself in that moment, like, am I consuming or am I creating? And it's like, no, I'm consuming and that's fine. But hey, I actually want to create a little bit. So, and I've been doing the same thing where I draw at night, where I'm like, okay, watch Netflix, and I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna like sit down and just draw. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is an interesting time to start doing that. As a lot of people are commuting less, or kind of just still at home, just kind of like idle. It's like, all right, am I consuming or am I creating? Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then I like that, and I also like the other of like, all right, 7 minutes. That's what I'm gonna do. Like 7 minutes, I'll go for a walk. 7 minutes, it's a digestible amount of time.
Yeah.
And just be like, all right, doesn't matter what I'm doing, I can just stand up for 7 minutes. And I think we oftentimes just have to kind of trick ourselves into doing things. We're like kids. It's like, just get up for a few minutes and you don't have to do anything. And then all of a sudden you're standing and it's like, well, I might as well like do some jumping jacks or go for a walk or something.
Yeah. All of this is easier said than done.
Totally. I'm like, now that we're done with this, I'm going to keep sitting on my couch and have a coffee. And no, but I think this is an awesome conversation. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate just your energy. And that's why I wanted to chat with you, because, I get a taste of it in our Bear Yoga Basics classes, and we've had some good chats. We've also done body positivity workshops and stuff. And I think, there's a lot that I think you have to offer and share with this community, because you're a part of it and you've, worked through so much. And yeah, hopefully we'll talk again soon and learn more and come up with other interesting nuggets that we can share with this group. But I personally appreciate it. Yeah, you're an awesome dude.
Yeah, right back at you.
Thanks, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll chat again soon.
Sounds good.